2022. The agenda has been posted. The media has been notified. Please call roll.
Chris Fredrickson.
Here.
Thomas Kelly.
Here.
Ryan Rossing.
Here.
Eileen Daniel.
Here.
Carrie Michalowski.
Here.
Gerald Anderson. Thomas Barnett.
Here.
David Holt. Andrew Larson.
Here.
Oh, please stand. I'd ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting agenda to move the mayor's comments up in front of the public comments.
Rossing will make a motion to amend the meeting agenda for the mayor's comments to be placed in front of public comment.
Larson, second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Motion carries. Good afternoon. This is it's a bittersweet moment for the mayor, as this is my last meeting that I will be chairing. I'm going to pass the chair off. The reason I'm going to pass the chair off is because I can't see currently. So to run the meeting effectively, to even read the agenda, I don't have that. For public knowledge, I'll be having surgery on Thursday, but that's neither here nor there. I want to tell you that what a blessing it has been and how thankful I am for being able to lead this city for the last 4 years. It's been tumultuous at times. We've had a lot of successes. We've learned from a lot of mistakes, and we move forward. One, I want to applaud our council right now for working together and moving things forward, even when we disagree or agree on certain things, that we've done open governance as best our possibilities. I want to thank our administrative staff as far as leading the direction that we're going to being fiscally sound and moving towards practices that are by far further along than we were 4 years ago. And I definitely want to thank my department heads and actually my workers. Without them, the first couple of years wouldn't have been bearable even to move forward. Little less the fact that they took care of stuff in a very, very, very professional manner all the way through this, and I appreciate them. Last but not least, I want to thank the people for investing in me, giving me a chance without being a part of government before, and then supporting me as we led through change after change after change. That being the case, one of the things that with the separation of church and state, I've always realized that I represent everybody out there, all faith, shapes, sizes, sexes, colors, race, creed, all of them. But it was always in my purview to do an invocation or a prayer. Now, what I don't force anybody to do that or anything else, but I want you to know that you have a mayor that prays for the city. I pray for our citizens and I pray for our direction. And this be my last meeting, I'm going to ask you, if you would like, you can join me in prayer. I'm going to pray for our city. Father God, I thank you for this opportunity and for the blessing and for the honor that it is to lead this city, Lord, and give all glory to you, Lord. I pray for the people, their situations in housing and tax and water, Lord, that it's in your hands and that you'll help take care of them. Lord, I pray for our new mayor and our new direction with some new council members, Lord, that you just bless them with good people around them, surround them with knowledge, give them a thirst and a love for the people so that they can make correct decisions. Lord, I thank you again for this opportunity in Jesus' name. Amen. Now I'd like to turn the chair over to Ryan Rossing.
Virginia, would you mind hitting the admit button on the screen? Sorry, the admit at the top of the screen. Thank you.
Okay, back up to public comments. First on the list, Bill Freudenberg. You state your name and location.
Bill Freudenberg, City of Rhinelander.
I'd like to talk to you about under unfinished business from previous council meetings. Under item E, discuss approve modified modifications to wage scale for the assistant administrator and public works director. I know this has been in discussion as long as, well, not longer than the assistant fire chief, that's for sure, but at the same time, as a taxpayer of a community of roughly 7,600 people, we've always had one administrator. And I know people feel to some extent that, not progress needs to move on a little bit faster. Politics, it just doesn't move that way. But at the same time, I also feel that I don't really feel a need for this position tied in with a public works director, because it's just going to create a higher paying position for this individual to come on board. So I'm totally speaking in opposition to this. You have a current consultant on board that you're paying for as well. So I really think you really need to look over this, and I really think we need to focus on the assistant fire chief tonight versus the public works director / assistant administrator. And one other point I want to make tonight as well. For the long-term employees of the city, I think you need to really look at your longevity pay and not have it saying that according to the whatever the Detman solution, whatever that may be called, to have it included with their salary. That's not good business. I mean, especially with your longevity employees, that should be separate pay. That should not be put in their salary where it's a higher taxable income. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Tom Giroux.
Tom Giroux, 604 Reich Street. We need more poll workers. It's not on your agenda, and I told Austin he's doing a great job. His first election, he did wonderful. But I figured you as community leaders could help recruit poll workers. We had 2 wards at one table, which means you have 2 sets of books, 2 ballots behind you. And, we did make an error. I went to the board of canvassers. We handed out a ballot to the wrong person because there were 2 wards at one table. And I know because I covered it during lunch, and I did the same thing, and I tackled them at the 30-yard line and got my ballot back. So I didn't cause the error, but I could see how easily it would happen. The other thing that we absolutely have to have is we have to have somebody in the lobby to open the handicap door. I did that in the morning, and that door is hard to open if you're in a walker, a wheelchair, and we shouldn't be relying on the Dome staff to do that because they're busy checking people in and out, and they're not there in the afternoon. There's nobody there in the afternoon. We could use probably 4 to 5 more poll workers. The other suggestion, constructive suggestion, many employers allow their workers paid time to work the polls. We could do that with city employees if they wanted to. We wouldn't force anybody to do that. You do have to have a certain skill set to be a poll worker. And the last thing I think we could do, and like I said, I've been working on Austin with this stuff, is to maybe do an advertisement come election time. It's just too important of a job not to have it fully staffed. So if you know somebody in the community would make a good poll worker, have them get a hold of Austin, and that would be really good. The other thing I did want to comment on, which is on your agenda that my neighbor, Mr. Freudenberg, already talked about, I do think we need public works expertise on staff. Right now, it's Town and Country Engineering that does most of this work for us, and we're paying, a consultant's wages for that work. And much of it, 3 years ago was done by a licensed engineer. So we do need that expertise on city staff because it's very expensive to hire a consultant to do that work. So I'm not going to comment on the hybrid between an assistant administrator and engineer. I leave that up to you guys to ferret out. But we need that expertise. I think it's really important. Many of you know I'm passionate about bicycle and pedestrian stuff, and that's another area where some expertise on staff is needed. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody in the audience that did not get a chance to sign the list to speak tonight? Any alders have any comments from anyone? Go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, I received this correspondence from the Over It kids, and they asked me to read it during public comment. It says, on behalf of everyone at Over It, we are incredibly thankful for the support not only our community has shown us during this journey, but our mayor. Mayor Frederickson, we simply would not be here without your initial Facebook post. We probably would have given up. You relit our spark in all of us here at Over It. We will continue making strides toward success throughout this year. We hope to see you still rooting for us on the sidelines.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, meeting minutes. Approval of the March 28th, 2022 council meeting minutes.
I'll make a motion to accept the March 28th, 2022 council meeting minutes as presented.
Michalowski, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Okay, ordinances, first reading. Ordinance 2022-2, amending 2.01.03, parent 1A to A, appointed officials.
This item was referred at the end of the last council meeting as to the cleanup of which appointed officials report and are, I shouldn't say report, but that are hired and fired, that sort of thing, through ordinance to the council. Also, you'll see underneath the mayor, city inspector, director of public health, and finance director, as those positions have been either retitled or combined through, in the case of the finance director / city treasurer. So two areas of cleanup in that regard.
We looking for any action to do on this? Okay. Moving on, ordinance 2022-3, annexation of PE-45-7.
Is this the one?
Yes.
Okay. I'd ask that we have a motion to pass this annexation, but that we also waive the second reading of it, as it's been before the Planning Commission. The site plan will go back to the Planning Commission, and with a 2/3 vote, we can waive the second reading. So I'd ask for that motion to come across as such.
Anybody willing to make that motion?
Michalowski, I'll make that motion.
Larson, I'll second.
We have a motion and a second to bypass the second reading for that ordinance. Austin, roll call vote on that? Or if there's any discussion first, sorry.
No, just go ahead.
Ryan Rossing,
Aye.
David Holt, Andrew Larson,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly,
Aye.
Gerald Anderson, Carrie Michalowski,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Ayes have it.
We have a guest up there. It looks like he's hiking.
Gerald, can you hear us?
Gerald, are you able to hear us now?
Yes, I am now. Thank you.
Reports of boards, commissions, and committees.
Whoa. You just voted to have a 2/3 vote. Now you got to vote on the motion since you
thank you.
voted to go to the 2/3 vote. Because you basically, what Chris asked for, or what the mayor asked for was, and what the motion was made, is that you would take a two-thirds vote to skip. Now you got to vote to go ahead and do it.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Daniel, make a motion to pass City of Rhinelander Ordinance 2022-03, annexing territory to the City of Rhinelander, Wisconsin pursuant to Wisconsin Statute 66.0217.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Now, reports of boards, commissions, and committees. We can take them individually or together.
Barnett, make a motion to accept the reports from departments? No. Oh, no, where are we? Oh, I'm on the wrong page, I'm sorry. I'll make a motion to accept the Public Arts Commission meeting minutes, January 26th, February 23rd, March 23rd of 2022.
Larson, second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. The January 5th, 2022 Rhinelander Oneida County Airport Commission. Can anybody make a motion to approve that?
Michalowski, I'll make a motion to accept the report of the January 5th, 2022 Rhinelander Oneida County Airport Commission as presented.
Barnett, second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Again,
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Unfinished business from previous council meetings, discussion and action items. Update on 2021 capital borrowing projects. Zach?
Separate from your packets, in your mailboxes was the capital assets borrowing requests that you all were presented with last year, as well as throughout the budget process. You'll see in the notes column what's been spent thus far in each of those categories, and then the next column of what remains to be spent. The one exception is the fire department boiler actually came out of 2018 borrowing, so that $10,970 was spent, but it was not through this borrowing. So, and we did carry that undesignated forward. That's the $11,000 at the bottom. So, all told, and I did commit in there the Hodeg phase, Park Phase 1, which went from 100 to 200,000, provided there's no additional fundraising. So any additional fundraising that may come in would offset that. But of the $1 million that the city opted to borrow in 2021, about 577,000 remains for the various projects as you see listed there. The building improvements item at City Hall, which is connected to the next item on our agenda, was largely for the LED fixtures and upgrades. So there were some rebates received as a result of that too, which are not reflected here. And then I would point to the contingency at the bottom that we still have built into here, which is about 10% of the total borrowing, a little less than 10% available for overages that were not anticipated when we put this together last year. Happy to answer any questions. We actively talk with streets. They're speccing the aerial bucket truck right now. The CDBG closed. We're still getting estimates. We'll have a more formal update at the next council meeting on that item. Trucks, in the case of the parks, as you all are aware, there's pretty significant supply chain issues with the ability and delivery of vehicles. So that's likely going to be delivered in 2023. Go through the website stuff right now. That estimate's looking to be about on par with the two of the three that submitted proposals to us. I think 17,000 was the first year cost, or about that in both instances. And then the shared ride taxi minivan is also the same situation with the delivery issues with supply chain. We're not paying 11,000 for the entire vehicle, but that's our local share for that. So that's just an update for all of you as to where our borrowing projects stand, and we'll continue to bring updates forward as the topics warrant.
Comments or discussion? Seeing none, moving on. Discuss/approve purchase of furniture for council chambers and conference room. Zach.
I'll actually have Jeremy come up to the podium too. Some of this precedes me in terms of discussions as I understand about what the staff had envisioned for this. But in talking with some of you leading into this as we prepared the borrowing was specific to the tables, but we did have them price out chairs. So those estimates are also included in your packet. I would say there are a couple items that we're not likely pursuing at this time. It's item B in that, which is table power and wire management. We think that there's some cheaper ways or less expensive ways for us to go about addressing that item. So the first item was tables, because as I understand, some of you have some table issues, and Jeremy can talk through what he's done in the past. And then the chairs, both for in this room as well as in the conference room there. So Jeremy, I guess maybe give some more background beyond what I've talked about here.
So yeah, a lot of this also stems from, the tables are obviously older tables, they're delaminating, and they're just big and bulky for one person to sit at. And when we need to move the tables around, kind of wrinkles the carpet as we do that. So I was looking to get smaller, lighter tables that we could use more conveniently when we hold other types of classes and things like that up here that are easier to move and, more practical for that type of situation. And then Jim Hex brought it up to me where it would be a lot easier if we could kind of rearrange the room a little bit too. And if he was stationed over there near the door and then the whole row of council along this wall, it would be kind of a more friendlier meeting with some audience over there and overflow on this side as well. And that made sense too, the way he wants to rearrange the room and have various cameras mounted on the walls and stuff and more permanent. So that way, even if we needed to do other Zoom meetings, city staff could do that as well without having him be present all the time. So it's just a little idea of why we're going with the new tables and chairs. And chairs, obviously, these are worn out a little bit too. So just nice to refresh every once in a while. And those do come with a lifetime warranty. So if they would start delaminating in the humid summers, she said, just call and we'll get them taken care of right away. So.
Tom?
So these numbers in here are not finalized, and we're not voting on
They are final as far as
$40,000?
they are final as far as what Jeremy just spoke to with new chairs for both rooms and new tables. But again, I would offer that item B be struck from that proposal. So it'd be in the tune of 13,000 between all the package if you're looking at both rooms.
Okay. So then, so then we're not voting on $40,444.
Definitely not. I don't think any of us would have brought something forward in that regard.
Okay. What is the final number?
$13,804.92.
I got the 92 cents.
In your
Tom, do you
pocket.
want to make that motion?
No.
Oh, okay. Eileen?
In looking at this, considering the other factors that we're facing as far as finding money for other things within the city right now, since we're almost halfway through, I don't know about anybody else, but I have no problem with the current chairs that we have. I do agree that the tables are big, they're bulky, I know the tops are coming up. I would propose merely changing out the tables, but I really, at this point, personally don't feel we need new chairs. They're not breaking. They may be getting a little threadbare, but you sit in them just as well. So that's just my take on it.
Tom? Barnett?
Yeah, I have to agree with older person Daniel, because when I first saw this in the agenda, I was really kind of, we're trying to find all this money for other things to pay for, and granted, what we need is a lot more than the 13,000 for this stuff, but I also look at it as priorities. That's 13,000 that could go toward helping to find money where we desperately need it. We sit at the desks and chairs 2 hours twice a month. Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'd sit at a card table if I had to. So I honestly don't think that the 13,000 for me is a little steep for new furniture, honestly. I mean, you can go to IKEA, for God's sakes. You know, we don't need something that's super fancy. And as far as the chairs go, I'll bring in my own pillow if I have to for a cushion. I mean, honestly, to me, this is just like so low on the totem pole of what needs to be financed that I don't know, I'm not for it.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tom. I just, there's other reasons besides comfort for us. They talked about design and layout and being able to facilitate other things for city staff. So, maybe the chairs could wait, but I do think that moving forward on the tables to accommodate that layout would be beneficial. Gerald.
I also question spending this much money for something that I don't see the need for. The chairs seem just fine, and even if we decide to get new chairs for the council chambers, we'll just move the present ones into the conference room and replace those. The wiring seems like it's more important concern, and we're not dealing with that. I guess I'm also concerned about the configuration. It seems like maybe it gives a good view to the cameraman, but I'm not sure how good a view it gives to the people in the audience. And I kind of liked, actually, during the pandemic that we could spread out as much as we've been able to. God forbid it. I hope it doesn't happen again, but still, I don't know that we need to be a whole lot closer. So I would be against it too.
Tom, did you have a comment? I'll make a motion to move forward with the purchase for the tables for the council chambers.
Michalowski, second.
And that's
Discussion?
just the 6,697, is that correct?
I didn't look at the numbers.
That's A, correct? Okay.
Any other discussion? So the motion is for item A, the $6,697.56. All those in favor?
We need a roll call vote.
Oh, yeah,
'cause
money.
it's money.
Austin, could you do a roll call vote?
Andrew Larson,
Aye.
Ryan Rossing,
Aye.
Eileen Daniel,
Aye.
Thomas Kelly, Gerald Anderson,
Nay.
David Holt, Thomas Barnett,
Nay.
Carrie Michalowski.
Aye.
Ayes have it. Motion carries. Update on employee recruitment and retention. Zach.
I'll have Rachel come up to the podium as she can present the work product, which is in page 23. Over the course of the preceding months here, we've had some questions raised about employee retention and to what percentage or what rate we have in terms in comparison to other governmental entities. And then she can also share, if she wishes, any updates on the current positions we're recruiting for presently. On
Okay,
page
so
23.
23.
Yeah, page 23. So looking at the chart that was provided to you, apologies, I had created this in color, so it's a little difficult to read. So the dark bar represents employees that have retired. The medium colored bar represents folks that have resigned, and then the last bar in each quarter is the combination of the two. So I pulled all the data for each quarter in 2021, and then as well this first quarter in 2022. Although when I pulled the data, it was end of February. That data mark, those are still accurate for the whole first quarter. There were no additional resignations or retirees after the date that I pulled this information. National turnover rate in 2021 was 57.3% overall, 25% for voluntary. This data represents our voluntary, so resignations and retirements, as well as terminations. From a nationwide perspective, turnover rate for government positions, 18.6. For us in 2021, we were at 16% overall. So I don't see that that turnover has increased greatly when I look at historical compared to today. Are there any questions with that data? And then from a postings perspective, do you wanted me to give an update on that as well? We currently have the mechanic posting out there. I'm not seeing much in regard to results for candidates for that position. The summer postings are out there. I have most of those filled, other than a couple of positions in streets, and then I'm awaiting the additional. Our foreman for streets as well has just been posted. That's been out there for 2 weeks. I've only had a couple of candidates, neither qualified at this time.
Thank you, Tom.
Do you have any idea as to why not many people are? Is it our pay? Is it our
So for the
reputation?
streets
I
foreman?
mean, yeah, for anything, for mechanic, streets foreman.
From my perspective on mechanic, Oneida County posted the same position and starting wage at 28 point something, and our scale has us at like 24 to 25 when at my control point. So directly that for sure. Street foreman, I don't know for sure. I've only had it out there a couple of weeks. Sometimes they're slow rolling, but I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
Any other discussion from anyone else? Thank you.
Thank you.
Update on 2021 Ambulance Fund 225.
Pages 24 and 25 in your packets actually does continue on to 26 as well. This item was briefly discussed when we did the budget amendment at I think it was a February council meeting, second February meeting. And the question was raised about the ambulance fund. We did adjust rates mid-year last year and didn't budget for that rate since we didn't have the rates adjusted, nor did we have a full picture of what we would expect in order for that. The first page in the packet covers the revenue side of the budget. So you'll see that we budgeted 1.86 million, budgeted 2 million and change, and the year-to-date actual through December 31st was 1.8 million. So the revenue overall was a bit shy on the revenue side, but on the next page, expenses are shown. There was some overages in the budget and some line items. You can see that through the whole picture there, but on the following page does account for the net revenues over expenditures, so the difference between the two. And so the year-to-date actual amount was 63,000 of a net surplus at the end of the year, which because the Fund 225 is segregated for purposes of ambulance service, those revenues do remain in that fund to cover previous or subsequent years' overage or shortfall. On the subsequent, and I guess I would just add too, last week, Brian, Wendy, and I had a good discussion with our our billing vendor to give a perspective on trends and things that are of concern within the ambulance fund, both locally and to discuss some dynamics associated with that, but also looking forward, what we might be able to expect. There's a number of factors associated with billing in the ambulance space, and so we'll be bringing a contract forward with some more information at a subsequent meeting with our vendor that does the ambulance billing for us. But overall, a positive picture in that, you know, we're generating more money than we would, and really at the end of the day, at the end of the year, for some dollars. Now, the subsequent budgets were the conclusion of the general fund, which funds the fire service. We did also have some discussion last week about splitting, or how the operations are split. Right now, there's a percentage that's billed to the ambulance fund and a percentage that's billed to the general fund, and we're going to continue to talk about that as a team to potentially make modifications in the 2023 annual budget. But that budget was, the fire department budget was was over, as you'll see on page 27, just shy of $60,000, and you can see the subsequent or corresponding line items as to where that was. But having discussion with the chief, obviously with the creation of the assistant chief, we suspect that there will be some ability to cover for shifts on a Monday through Friday basis anyway, on during the day part of which that assistant chief would be planning to work. And so you'll see that in the, hopefully in the overtime budget, that we'll be able to continue to make, continue to hold true, or as much as possible hold true to what the adopted budget is. Obviously, last year was a bit of an atypical year from the standpoint of position changes, vacancies, when we could fill positions. And none of us ever have a crystal ball when we pull the budget together, but when we think about you know, when a retirement may happen, or when we actually can place an entry-level firefighter, for example, there's obviously implications budgetarily. So a lot of factors contribute to the picture, but just wanted to share those bits of information with you all as it relates to the budget.
Any other comments, questions?
And I guess the other question is, should there, you know, you may be wondering, where does the $56,000 come from in the case of the fire budget? The police department budget and inspections budgets did come under their adopted budget. So overall, in the public safety space, those budgets, there was a net positive to cover that differential.
Tom?
I guess I'm a little confused. Where exactly is that 50,000?
Where's the 56,000 that was the
56,
shortfall?
yeah.
So the shortfall was captured. So at the end of the year, when the budget is closed, or the books are closed for the year, the differential gets either, because it's general fund, all those dollars are generally property tax or other revenues that cover those expenses. So fortunately, there was a surplus in other budgets to cover that budget shortfall.
Okay.
Yep.
And how does that affect the pay scale for the assistant chief?
The pay scale for the assistant chief? Mm-hmm. They're independent.
They're independent, they don't reflect one another at all?
No, this is 2021 financial year, yep.
Okay. But I mean never mind. I don't think, let me think about it. I'll talk to you later about it. I got to figure out how to phrase it.
I mean, the bigger question is, obviously, as it relates to assistant chief, is how are we going to adjust the budget to accommodate those expenses, whatever the expenses end up being. And, you know, I think I'm here to tell you that the ambulance fund, because we've adjusted rates last year, that we're generating more income. And there's also some adjustments in Medicare, Medicaid that should be to the positive budgetarily as we go throughout the year.
Okay.
We knew that the general fund didn't have the capacity to support that. So if pending any other budgetary transfer from another department per se, we would have not been able, there really was no funding source. So that's the byline of all of this information. And I don't know, Wendy, if there's anything else, or Brian, on that picture that we talked about that needs to be shared. Is there anything as it relates to the 2021 budget performance?
The only thing that I would like to point out on this was the, what's listed as the budget amount includes the budget amendment that we passed. So when we were explaining that we received more ambulance fees than we had anticipated, the original budget was not 1.6 million, it was 1.15 million. So if you're looking at the variance, that's not really a good determination on this one. This one's after we reconciled it. And the way that our budget is adopted, it's adopted in categories of a grand total line. And it's the police, the inspections, and the fire department, their budgets combined. So when we budget their grand total, their actuals combined need to have to come underneath the budgeted amount. And it's been consistent that the police department has been very fiscally responsible to cover the fire budget's deficit. And that's it.
Okay, anything else on that? Moving on to discuss, approve modifications to the wage scale. Assistant City Administrator / Public Works Director, Assistant Fire Chief, Code Enforcement Inspector. Zach.
So based upon the action of the council at the last meeting to adopt the org chart, HR and I finished the product as it relates to assigning the wage scale, or the impacts to the wage scale with those modifications. The 3 positions that you see listed on the agenda are all incorporated within the wage scale. I'll also draw your attention to a few other enhancements, one of which is through some discussion with the wastewater foreman and the what's titled in the chart now. Where is it on there? The compliance specialist item, you see grade H, it's in the middle of that first column on the left. Previously it was lab technician. We had some discussion about the duties and the role at which the person are performing those duties are beyond those which the JDQ, the job description questionnaire that was completed in the 2017 wage analysis. So through some back and forth and some additional information on that item is being regraded as an H. Previously was an F, I believe, if I'm not mistaken in my memory on that one. F to a G in this year's budget, and then of course the more information then substantiated for the H. You'll also find that the administrative assistants 1, 2, and 3, so there's a ladder for folks there. You'll see that same attitude carried forward in the streets maintenance workers as well as utility. Through discussion in those departments, frankly through the employee engagement discussions and previous, there had been a couple of visions both between the previous past administration, let's call it, on how the various streets maintenance titles would be given, and so we want to be consistent in that people have a ladder or an opportunity to be able to move. The F and the G assignment for the utility maintenance workers are also enhancements, recognizing that there are proficiencies associated with both of those levels, and therefore we created the additional utility maintenance worker position. Previously, the streets maintenance worker 1 and 2 were street maintenance worker, and then the 2 was a light equipment operator. And frankly, everyone's operating similar or the same equipment in the streets department. And so we want to make sure we just get that language to accurately reflect what their duties are. And then you'll see the addition of the other items, the Assistant City Administrator, Public Works Director, Assistant Fire Chief, and the Code Enforcement Inspector, all incorporated. Rachel, am I forgetting anything in terms of enhancements or additions at this time? Okay.
Larson, I'll make a motion to approve the modifications to the wage scale as presented.
You have a motion?
Michalowski, second.
And a second. Discussion? Mr. Kelly.
Yes, I'm still having a problem with the title Assistant City Administrator / Public Works. This is going to create a lot of phone calls from the general public because perception becomes reality here, and I just don't think it's a good idea to have that title, Assistant City Administrator. So I would vote against this.
Tom Barnett.
Does this, I'm just trying to wrap my head around the financial stuff here. So does this reflect the pay scale for these positions as well?
Yeah, this is
This is the pay scale for, and then the percent steps are the increases in the pay scale, right?
Correct.
Okay. So what is the yearly for the assistant fire chief in this?
The assistant fire chief was previously a grade K.
Yeah.
In the previously adopted wage scale.
Yeah, but now it's a 0 or an O?
It's a letter O, correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what would the annual be? I mean, I could break out my calendar and do it here, but if you have that on you.
Yeah, you would multiply the wage rate times 2,080. That's the number of hours non-union folks work.
Okay. So what would that break down to yearly pay? Yeah, I know their hourly rates, but the final total for the year.
So the range would run $66,830 for the step 1, or the first step in the O. The midpoint or control or the market would be $76,377.60. And then the top of the range in the current iteration would run $85,924.
And our deputy chiefs, what are they making?
They would be in the in the union wage scale, and that's what they just negotiated for in the contract.
Separate. Okay.
Yep. This is only non-union.
Okay.
Further discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Yeah.
I got 1 no. Motion carries. Next, update on employee engagement activities. Zach is going to update us on this.
Yeah, there isn't anything in your packet, but through discussion that was sort of presented initially at the work session on HR matters, we shared that we would be meeting with individual groups on an initial basis. I'll have Rachel come to the podium to talk about more of the meat of what's being asked and being discussed at those meetings, but we've held them with just about all the groups. We're still working through, in the case of those that work other shifts with different crews, we're still working through scheduling those, but we'll be through the initial within the month of April here. Rachel, do you want to speak to what's being discussed?
Yep, absolutely. So far the meetings, I've had the meetings with the following teams: with water, parks, wastewater, streets, and the administration group, or the folks that are actually housed here in City Hall. Still yet to sit down with the police and then the fire department and trying to figure out a schedule with the 3 shifts that occur over at the fire department. The questions that I ask in advance of the meetings, I'm asking them to fill out a short survey, and then we're walking through the answers to those questions. Are what's going well for you in your position? What are some of your wins? What are some of the things that that you've done and you feel like you've accomplished? Challenges, and then also talking about getting events started again. So we've gone through the pandemic. We used to have golf outings. We used to have some get-togethers. There was a lot of discussion. All of the groups have come back and said, you know, I don't know everyone that works for the city anymore. We used to know each other. So there is a desire across the board to get everyone, or have everyone get back together. Golf outings seems to outshine everything else outside of luncheons and that sort of thing. But there's talk about community events and outdoor activities once the weather gets us there. When we talk about what's going well, most of the folks really enjoy the teams that they work with, the people that they work with, and the variety and the work that they do every day. That's come through in every meeting. When we talk about wins, they all talk about making progress and moving forward. They talk about working together and completing tasks and being appreciated. Challenges, communication within all the departments, and then from the top down as well, there's challenges there and things don't seem to cross the lines, so trying to work on improving that. The wage scale comes up inevitably, and then as well, the Sunday double time has been a bone of contention. And then I talked about the events already. So like I said, I've had the first meetings. I've also started having the handbook meetings where we've just gone through and reviewed section 1 with most of those same teams. So I am hoping to have these meetings like monthly, but with the work on the handbook, we might kind of bring that stuff together because I'm spending a lot of time at the different departments, which is totally great, but they start meshing into each other. That's about it on that. Any questions? Thanks.
Thank you. Discuss Stevens and Pelham Anderson Street traffic lights.
Page 34 or 35, we had a little issue with our numbering when we were through the packet together the other day. In your 34 in the middle of the page or 35 in the corner. This exhibit shows where we have the capabilities to do what's called actuated or some form of interruption at the intersection. When the portion of the intersection was reconstructed, we did install traffic detection loops. The plan is to, it's already in the budget estimate for the reconstruction of the Oneida Street area, which that intersection will bump up against, where we'll have the addition of the detection loops included in the project. So the other interim opportunity we could do is to turn off the pedestrian countdown timers that are currently there. Right now, there's a countdown, so if someone approaches the intersection and hits, or if a person hits the button, the push button, and it starts a timer. So right now, we could deactivate some of that and just have it on a timed basis. It would give a little more priority to the traffic versus pedestrians, but that's really the last thing we can tweak in the current constraints. Otherwise, by this time next year, we'll begin the construction of that project, and we'll have the more permanent solution in place. So those would be my two updates on that topic. And I will also add, I guess I can do so in my report later, actually, as it relates to the construction project. Otherwise, there's about 30,000 for cameras if we wanted to do that now at that intersection, or again, incorporate it in the project.
Questions? Obviously, you guys know that this is a bone with me. It's really frustrating to be there and just come up to a light that you wait for a while and nobody goes through. I think it's part of an outdated traffic flow from back in the day when there was not a bypass. And so I think that there's obviously some changes, but the question would be if we can muscle through the way that it's been, or if there's some things that we can do before the construction. So I'm not gonna, since I'm chairing this, I'm not gonna make any specific motions, but if somebody else wanted to make a motion, we could entertain that. Or something to do in the meantime before next year, or to wait. So,
and I would add, we can certainly trial the alternative configuration, say for 60 days, just to see if there's any relief or potential consequences we get or complaints we might get from the public if there's pedestrians in that area regularly.
All right, I'll make that motion. Follow Zach's advice.
who was up first? I missed it.
A motion to my effect.
Made a motion to go along with what Zach is proposing.
Which was a 60-day trial of the alternative configuration,
trial.
turning off the
Trial
priority
period.
for pedestrians.
I'll second that. Daniel, second.
All right, we have a motion and a second, and I'm gonna let Tom Barnett wants to speak, and then Chief Gauthier looks like he wants to say something. So Tom, you want to go ahead and speak before that?
Yeah, what would be the issue, and maybe the chief can answer this better, what would be the issue of turning that intersection into a stop sign until next year when we redo all that?
Yeah, I think it.
I would not be in favor of a stop sign at all. When there was a stop sign due to the light issue at the block just down from there, it was a nightmare. The only thing I would suggest is we not turn off that pedestrian counter during the summer when we have the most pedestrian traffic downtown. The wait might be a little bit longer, but for pedestrian safety, I think that if we're going to try that, maybe wait till September would be my recommendation.
So with, I guess my question to that, with the pedestrian counter, you still have, I can't remember if there's a crosswalk down there or not, but pedestrians will still have the right of way, or they'd have a light on the thing to say to stop or to go. Am I wrong on that? I can't.
Right. When the counter's in place, obviously we have to run the entire length of the counter, where if we take the counter off, then we can preempt or override the pedestrian length. So we can't, if somebody were to approach it and there's 60 seconds left on the counter, we can't just cut that off. It just has to run its course. So when you factor the entire timing of the operation, pedestrians are still getting a fair amount of time. And that's why I think if we can trial this to see what sort of complaint activity, I would imagine the users in that vicinity, bank and some of the others, might be your primary user base, but that's what we would suggest trying.
Okay. Sounds good. Tom Barnett.
If I can ask Chief to speak on that. What are the, you obviously have a concern about that. What is the specific concern that you have about turning that counter off?
Well, we've been advertising, we've been pushing towards making our community more friendly or for pedestrians, and if they think there's the ability to do that and it's not working, I think you're going to get complaints no matter how much you publicize it. I think that if when the weather's nicer, we have a ton of downtown foot traffic, and that just to me, I think it just goes to show that we are trying to be more friendly towards pedestrians. We're encouraging it. I think with gas prices, the way they're going, we might have more pedestrian traffic downtown. So that's the only reason I suggest that we continue with that thought process of we want people to feel that they can come downtown, that they can walk, that they're safe when they walk. We have these safety precautions in place, but ultimately, again, it's your choice.
So, pardon my traffic light ignorance, but what will turning off this counter do that's different than what it's doing now?
Really, it's a matter of who gets priority, motorists or pedestrians. And so we would give more priority to the motorists instead of the pedestrians. So there's ideally less queuing time for motorists. Yeah. And the four-way stop consequence, too, is the queuing length for the amount of vehicles that can fit. There's a lot of semi-traffic on this road. So I think if you were to make it a four-way stop, we're going to run into some backups at the following intersection, especially in the summertime.
And will this allow the light to turn green for Ryan faster?
Ideally. We're going to rename the intersection too.
Right.
In his honor.
Just the light.
I don't think it's just for me. But
okay, thank you.
Mayor Frederickson.
Yeah, obviously with the two lights right side by side, it's ended up with some frustration for motor traffic. That being the case of almost all the things that I've read about placemaking and creating a walkable, friendly area for income to invest more in their homes and then also to increase their housing. One of the things we wanted to do is centralize certain things, so that would be our downtown. we'll be discussing on economic development and apartments downtown, or anything like that, which would increase that traffic. So I would hate to decrease public safety standard at this point for the sake of moving traffic through faster when that loop, if the loop goes through, will make it more advantageous for the motor traffic to go through at that point. I can tell you right now, crossing the street's a risky adventure for me. So being able to push a button and know that I at least have a little bit of time, it would be a good thing. As we see our families age, we have an aging population. If they're going to move around and walk, that is a consideration, and I think we've identified some of that in some of the other studies we've also done. But that's just my feeling.
I think it's April, so it's not quite summer yet. 60 days to try it to see what it would do or look like would be beneficial. So, anybody else before we vote on the motion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
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 Those opposed? Ayes have it. We'll see. Okay, introduction of new business, discussion and action items. Item A, discuss approve agreement with Hodag Little League for field improvements. Zach.
You may recall last year we had discussions with the Little League Association about some field improvements to take place at the 2 Little League Diamonds within Hodag Park. At that time, due to some factors, variety of factors, the decision was made to hold off on the improvements. We did have some discussions with them as we went through the agreements for the use agreements for the fields, that they were intending to pick that project back up yet this year. And so just recently we pulled back together to make some final modifications to this agreement. They did provide acceptance of the proposal since our discussion, and so we're presenting this agreement for your consideration here tonight. There is no cost to the city to do this work. We anticipate the improvements to be in the range of $100,000, and between Little League and some donors, they're going to be making that investment on their own. Obviously, it's a city facility and city field, but we still have some obligations to each other, and so that's why we put this together in an agreement. So overall, it'll be a nice improvement. The fields will be irrigated, and they're currently not irrigated today, and they will be safer, which I think everyone can get behind.
I'd like to make a motion to accept that agreement as presented.
Mikulowski, second.
Can the mayor make a motion? I'd rather take it from somebody else.
All right, I'll make that motion to approve.
All right, motion by Tom Kelly.
I'll still second it.
Carrie, second. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Ayes have it. Sorry, Mayor. Discuss spring cleanup and drop site for brush and leaves. Zach has an update.
Page 37 or 39 in your packets. This was the notice that was sent out last year. We're still internally going back and forth on what we anticipate the actual dates to be, but we will use a similar notice in both the printed media as well as in our online social media. The dates we're anticipating early May. So early to mid-May, I'll say it, and then we'll be pushing out a notification to you all as well to the media once we agree on what those dates are going to be. Page 38 or 40, which is after that, are the minutes from October's meeting where we last discussed this program. It was determined at that time to hold a pilot in the spring of 2022 for a dump site program with zero cost to city residents and for city residents only. No contractor use allowed. So we did put together some basic components to that. Be allowed during business hours at the street department from 8 to 2. Again, dates to be determined. I'm thinking now with the snow cover, though there's some potential likelihood of some winter weather, we'll be pushing something out as to the dates on this as well. But that's the plan as of now. The drop site would be for brush only. We had been talking about yard waste and compost, though I think that gets into a whole nother realm of some complexities. And this will give us a good chance to experience, we'll collect some data to tell you all how many people used it, and ultimately report back as we go forward. And then potentially to run this again in the fall if it goes well and everybody agrees.
I'm sorry, I missed the part. You said this is going to be updated or pushed out to people for knowledge by which means?
We do a written notification. There's a noxious weeds ordinance or a notification we have to publish annually, so or invasive species, so we generally push that out at the same time. I think we hit the newspaper twice, and then we also would hit the online social media. And so it's press release and then those other two pieces.
Carrie?
Will this also be added to the city's website?
Yeah, thank you. Yep,
Okay.
I forgot that.
Eileen?
Did you state where the brush drop-off site would be for residents?
It would be at the Streets Department on Washington Street at 644 Washington Street. Right across from the UPS terminal.
Very good. Anything else on that? Item C, discuss reorganizational meeting on April 19th. Zach?
The city's ordinance states that on the third Tuesday after the election, that the council shall meet. Doesn't specify for what purposes, but generally it's because of the purpose of a reorganizational meeting. I'm not sure what past practice is on this, but we've been meeting with Mayor-elect on this and would recommend, if the council decides to meet, that it would be at 5 p.m., the swearing in of the new alderpersons and those that were reelected, as well as the mayor would occur at that meeting. The mayor would also likely make the mayoral appointments of alderpersons to committees, so like planning commission, and then the rest of the citizen appointments generally run through May. So we're in the process of just going through to figure out who's up in the various committees and to get that to the mayor-elect. So that's what would be the update on that. So 5 p.m. There would be no business discussed at that meeting other than those reports and the swearing in to occur. Tuesday the 19th, April 19th.
Questions, comments from anybody? Okay. All right, moving down to monthly reports from departments. I think that starts on approximately page 41.
Daniel, make a motion to accept the monthly reports from departments as presented.
Motion?
Mikulowski, second.
A second.
Just to make a quick point.
Yes.
Yeah.
Austin deleted my report from the agenda again, but that's not my reason for speaking. We're going to get that on there next time. I think I did it, actually. Told him to do it. We did, on the Oneida Street area, I did mention that we did have a funding request in, since most of that, or since we were hoping to get grant funding. We did receive $3 million in debt financing from rural development, which will come through the utility fees for the reconstruction of that entire area. And then we also received about $2 million, just over $2 million in grant. So about $5 million in total assistance for that reconstruction area. So the $2 million on Friday afternoon. So that's good news for ratepayers that won't have to carry another $2 million in costs. So just want to report that.
Sorry, anything else? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Ayes have it. Next is a motion to go into closed session. If necessary, convene into closed session pursuant to Wisconsin Statute Section 19.85, Sub 1, Sub E, considering employment, promotion, compensation, or performance evaluation data of any public employee over which the governmental body has jurisdiction or exercises responsibility, and deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. A, discuss parameters for a development agreement.
Daniel, make a motion to go into closed session.
A motion,
Mikulowski, second.
And a second by Carrie. Austin, if you could call roll to go into closed.
Gerald Anderson. Thomas Barnett.
Aye.
Abstain.
Eileen Daniel.
Aye.
Thomas Kelly.
Aye.
Carrie Mikulowski.
Aye.
David Holt. Andrew Larson.
Aye.
Ryan Rossing.
Aye. We'll go into closed session. And we can take Okay, back from closed session. Regarding the item, be no action taken. So we'll move on to future agenda items. Anybody have any future agenda items? Andrew.
One for the road, laptops. Please keep that on the list for the council members.
Anybody else?
I got a pen and paper that does me just fine. And
When the sheriff's department comes, I can tell you, you want that.
We all good?
yeah.
All right. We are adjourned.